Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new edition of Message of Hope. And today we have the pleasure to have Kristy Halvorsen, and she's an author, a writer, a coach, and an explorer of life. So welcome, Kristy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I will ask you the infamous question, which is, how does having this understanding, how does that help you navigate whatever shows up in your life, events, circumstances, whatever?
It feels like more of a sweet silence in a busy world. And it seems that the more I realize who I am and how wonderfully I'm made and how everything works, there's less for me to do. And I think another big one for me is kind of, I guess the best words I can come up with right now is like a permission to just live. However that may come about, however that may look and feel. There's less trying to be what I'm not, although there is some, because I'm human and that happens. But the moment I remember, I can just go back to living. And there's, for me, a lot less fantasizing of how things should be. It was funny, I just had a conversation with someone about fantasizing, and it almost feels like my old way of fantasizing was like, oh, I want this so that XYZ. Oh, if I only had this, then, oh, if I felt this way, it would be so much better than feeling that way. And so it's not saying having no fantasies. I mean, it's good to have fantasies. Like every invention technically has come from someone's fantasy. So those are great, but it's just like, it goes back to the feeling. Like it's fun to have a fantasy like I had. Oh, it'd be so awesome to quit my job and sell my house and live in a trailer and travel North America and the world. But there was a lightness about it. And it wasn't like, I must do that or else life will suck. Right?
There's a different I'll be happy when, and the wisdom.
Yes, exactly. To put it in very simple terms, there's a difference. And the difference is the feeling of it. So sometimes I still think, oh, I'll be happy when this fantasy happens. And I think more often than not, I catch myself. Like eventually I'm like, aha, look what I'm doing. And I can still go on with the fantasy or not. It doesn't mean I can't go on with that fantasy of, oh, that would be fun. That came into my life. But I just don't go towards things with that feeling, the heavy feeling of I need this or else. And in that is the lightness of living. And in that too, it feels like is all the opportunities. Because sometimes when I notice, I think back before I know what I know and saw what I saw. I would be so focused, I must do this. And it would be heavy and like I would miss out on all of this. And it feels like there's more possibilities and less of more seeing stuff on the edges now.
And then getting it and says, oh, all this fantasizing for nothing.
Yeah. And I find myself actually fantasizing. I mean, that's an interesting word, but you could call it dreaming or wishing or wanting. It's all the same. We use the big word of fantasizing, but I find myself doing that less. And I'm more in just here and the now. And I remember the first time someone asked me, I was talking in Denmark in 2000, I think it was November of 18. And I was sharing my story and I was just like just sharing where I'm at and what I've seen and what I've done and what I see about all of us. And this lady raised her hand and said, out of the blue, I hadn't talked about dreams at all, but this lady out of the blue and said, do you have dreams? Like, do you have a dream like that you're wanting for your life? And it was in that instant, I was like, oh my gosh, no. Like, then that was the first time I realized that I was even in that space of, I actually feel like I'm living the dream, and granted, things happen, stuff happens in life. I'm like, I would rather that not happen, but it's so much lighter now. I'm just like, it's almost like, oh, well, okay. All right, let's keep living. Like, how do we deal with this? Or what's next?
Yeah, because traveling, I've traveled too. Shit happens.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably sure that shit happens. And so there was a lightness in with whatever happens.
Right. And the travel, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I live in a 20-year-old trailer, and most trailers don't make it 20 years. So there's a lot of stuff that can break, and it has. And I remember, I'm glad you brought that up, because I started this kind of game of, my trailer's name is Cotty, and it feels like she's a family member. So I talked about her like it's a live person, but it's just an aluminum tube. But I would say, oh, anytime Cotty breaks, it's just time for me to fall in love with her more. Like, I get to learn more about her and trying to fix her, whereas before I'd be like, oh, Cotty breaks. Oh my God. Like, just throw this thing in the garbage. Early on, it was like, I don't know why I'm here. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have sold my house. I shouldn't be on the road. This old trailer's breaking all the time. And now it's just like, well, I'd rather things not break, but they do. And now it's a love story. Like, I get to fall more in love with Cotty and learn more about her through working through the troubled times. But it's not just travel. I mean, really crazy things happen in life. Heart-wrenching things happen in life. But it's the same thing. It's just, it's like take a deep breath, like I just did. All right. Or, oh, well, okay. All right, let's get through this. Like, I wonder what I'm going to see through this. I wonder what's going to happen. But having nothing on what's going to happen at the same time. And I think that is just one of the big keys of being able to live in this moment, is not being too concerned with the past or the future.
So it's a bit like surrender to what is.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like surrendering to surrender, even. Like, it is surrendering to what is. But it's not like, oh, I'm going to surrender what is. It's almost like, I'm not even going to surrender to surrender. Like, there's even less for me to do. I just get to be. But it totally, exactly what you just said. It's a surrender on a whole different scale, and really being okay with what's happening right now. What is, how I'm feeling, what's going on around me, everything. Like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay. Everything, up to and including death. Like, that was another, I've had a couple of experiences in the last couple of years that I never would have had before I've seen what I've seen and know what I know now. And that is like being in situations where it's like, oh, this could be my last day. All right. I wonder what that's going to be like. It's not like I'm like diving on a sword. Like, there was the last one that happened was, I think it was October, November. And I was kayaking, and I shouldn't have been where I was, and it was freezing water, large waves, no beach. If I was to fall out, I'd be dead within an hour, kind of thing. Couldn't feel my hands. I really was like, this could be it. This could be my last day. And I immediately felt sorry, like, oh, I feel bad for my family and friends, like, especially my mom. I'm like, oh, my mom, this is going to be so hard on my mom. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, she'll be okay. And man, I wonder what this will be like. It was like, I wasn't going to dive in the water and die on purpose. Like, I definitely wanted to live, but I was so okay with the fact that this could be my last day. It was a very, I don't even know the word. Like, I want to say light experience. Like it was just an opening, like, oh no, I'm actually okay. Like I'm curious. Like I think it's going to be grand. Like it's going to be another birth. Like
Well,
that's,
yeah, for what we hear from the NDEs.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
I've never experienced myself, but actually I'm kind of curious what happens. You know, I almost imagine my last breath being a big smile, like, all right, like when you're at the top of the roller coaster, the roller coaster you really want to be on, and you're like, woo! Yeah, but it's carrying. So even that oftentimes can seem like a heavy topic, the death. There's just a lightness to it. So going back to your question, like it's a lightness to everything. Most of the time, there are times where I get caught up in my head, but it's not very often anymore. Most of the time, there's a lightness to it all.
And from that lightness, probably something occurred to you.
Yeah.
To do. Because
Yeah.
obviously you're here, so something must have occurred to you to make you go forward.
Oh, you're talking about the kayaking trip?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my hands had frozen. I couldn't feel them, and I couldn't even unzip zippers or anything. But I knew where I was going. And I remember thinking, I don't know how much longer I can hold on to the paddle because I have no feeling. Like I'm able to grip, but I can't feel. And I can't unzip a zipper or do a button. And so I saw where I was going. I'm thinking it'll probably take me maybe an hour, but I'm going to go until I drop the paddle. And miraculously, I made it to the beach, and I couldn't feel anything by then, but it was like, whoa, I got to the beach. This is great. And I was extremely hyperthermic. I checked my temperature about an hour after sitting in front of my furnace. And I don't know in Celsius, but in Fahrenheit, it was 94 after warming up for an hour.
Wow.
So I was very hyperthermic. So it wasn't just a little silly story I made up. It was true. Like that could have been my last day, but my hands kept working. It was like, to me, it is a metaphor for life. It's like, I don't know how much longer I can keep a hold of this paddle. I don't know if I can make it there, but I'm just going to paddle while I can. Like it's that. No idea what's going to happen. No expectations, but I know right now I can still hold on and paddle. So I'll do that. And that was it. That was all that got me there. So it wasn't hard. I mean, it wasn't easy. It was difficult. Like there was times I was like, I'm tired of paddling. I'm freezing. But something in me was like, no, just keep paddling until you drop the paddle. And that was it. It was so simple, really. So that's a metaphor for life. Like,
we like to overcomplicate things.
yeah, exactly. Just paddle until you
right.
can't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only thing you could do anyway. So yeah.
Yeah.
I like that there was a lightness to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't want people to confuse lightness with things not being hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you can be in a situation that, man, this is not easy. But just because it's not easy doesn't mean you can't hold it lightly. You know? And you know, people, because I have this word "kadiwampo," how I describe it's just another word for living through wisdom and living in the moment. And a lot of people ask me, well, it sounds like you just do what is fun. Because I say, just follow the tickles of your soul. And I'm like, well, sometimes the tickle of my soul has me clean a toilet.
Mm.
You know, like the toilet's dirty. I need to clean it. The tub, maybe the sink too. That's not something I would like jump for joy. I can't wait to get to scrub and get a scrub brush and scrub a toilet or a tub. It's not fun, but I'm led to do it just because it's what I'm led to do that day. You know?
And there's some learning curves. No, sometimes no. You probably learn more about mechanics now the last little while. So there's still a learning curve with everything. No. So.
Oh yeah, you're coming up with such great stuff, because having lived in my trailer for 5 years and having so much stuff break, I'm now getting to the point where things are breaking for the second time. You know, like I remember I was in a tiny island off of Vancouver in Canada with no shops like that would have pieces for an RV. and my water heater broke and it was freezing cold. And I just had to make do. But I called a mechanic friend of mine that told me exactly what I need. And I ordered it, and I had to ferry over to Vancouver Island to get it. And it took a few days, and I took some damn cold showers in the meantime. But I got this little piece, and he told me exactly, pull the brown wire, take out the black wire, now plug it into the blue wire. So I followed his instructions with the little piece I got from a shop on Vancouver Island. Water heater works. I bought 2 of those little pieces. I was like, I will never be stuck in freezing temperatures with no hot water ever again. And wouldn't you know, about a year ago, I went to turn my hot water heater on. Nothing happened. I'm like, yes, I knew right where that piece was. And I was like in my robe, like a bath towel in the woods. And I go out with a flashlight and pull the brown wire, pick the black wire, unplug the blue wire, put it back here. I remembered how to do it. And I run back in, turn it on, whoosh. I was like, yes, like there's a learning curve, right? And then I ordered on Amazon 2 more, because I'm like, well, it seems every few years this happens, but there's so many things that only can come through experience, where the first time seems so much harder than when it happens again and again and again.
Because life is meant to be experienced. No, it's not to float on a little cloud all the time. And that's all we learn, is all we feel, the contrast.
Yeah.
So
no, perfect. Like, exactly. Yes. And it feels like when you're asking about how life changes with the understanding I have now. Well, my understanding is a product of the living, of the experiencing. And to kind of take your question a little further, like if I had to say to anyone, there's this little nugget of wisdom I would love to pass along. My biggest nugget of wisdom I would love to pass along is go experience, go live. Like, put down the books, walk out of the workshops. Like, what you need to know. And you'll know it even more, and you'll see even more the more you experience it for yourself. We can't just blindly believe what a book says or what some guy or girl at the front of a room says. I've seen so much through just living. And that's the golden nugget, I feel. That sometimes we can get wrapped up in the philosophies, and there's so much in just living for ourselves and seeing for ourselves. Like all these stories I've told is just each one of them was something I saw deeply because I experienced it. I got away from my desk.
it's when it goes from here to here.
Exactly. It's just a theory. And that's the thing, is we can be misled and thinking we know it. No, I know that. You could answer all the questions on the test and get 100%. And it really feels like we know it until life's like, aha.
Let's test if you really knew it.
And we're like, oh no, the sky is falling. Like, the sky really isn't falling, but it just hasn't sunk yet. But through those experiences where the sky is falling, a lot of times, like, something goes whoop, and we're like, oh. And the sky doesn't have to fall to know. You can see deep stuff through beautiful experiences too. We're not saying you have to go suffer to know more. That's not what we're saying. But we're on the roller coaster, and suffering and joyous and suffering and joyous just happens, and we get to see through all of it.
Yeah, it's like the tide. The tide goes up and down, and we're the same thing. Our world expands, and sometimes, shit happens, and it shrinks, and it's all part of the design.
Yeah, it is. And it looks too that the more drops, the more that goes from here to here, the less suffering that actually happens. And it's not like that if we have that as our goal, it's going to backfire. But there's something that says, if we know that as we see more, that our roller coaster evens out more. Because Because I can say, yeah, of course, I'm a human. I suffer here and there, but it's nothing on the scale I once did. And it's all because of the experience of life and seeing more and going, having a lot of, and oh my gosh, like those kind too. We're just like, how did I not see that before? But through experience comes the seeing and the knowing. Yeah.
Thank you, Kristy. And if people want to get in touch with you,
Yes.
how can they get in touch with you?
I have my website, which is KristyHalvorsen.com, but my name is very long and has a lot of vowels. So if you just type in KristyH.com, you'll find me. So KRISTY, the letter H.com. And that's also my email, Kristy@KristyH.com.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.